This gospel that we hear this morning is very familiar. We typically interpret it to say something about distraction. So let's think about that for a minute. Martha, he said, you are worried and distracted by many things. And this gentle rebuke is probably a fitting rebuke of our cultural moment we live in. We live in a culture of hectic schedules, a relentless pursuit of productivity. We're tempted to measure our worth, our feelings of being valuable, of being enough, by how busy we are, by how much we try to accomplish, or by how well we meet the expectations of other people. You know, they said 75 years ago, all of these technological advances will make it so that people can have more leisure time. I recently read a headline in The Onion and it said, cool, trendy company allows people to work from home on their phone 80 hours a week. That's the world we live in. And most of us can relate to Martha. I relate to Martha. This morning, when I walked into church after having been gone a week at church camp, I set about doing the thing that you pay your priest to do, to straighten the parish hall. So the problem with Martha is not that she is busy serving and providing hospitality. That is not the problem. Jesus commends this kind of service over and over again in the Gospels, notably in the parable of the Good Samaritan that we heard last week. There are two problems with Martha in this text, and it is not her serving. The first one is this: she's worried and she's distracted. Elisabeth Johnson, the great Lutheran scholar, wrote that the Greek here, perisapato, has a connotation of being pulled or dragged in different directions. This is something we can all relate to. We feel pulled in different directions. We feel worried and distracted by many things. This is a product of our fast-paced life. And yet Jesus said, can any of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? We know that our worrying does no good. We worry about the bigger things, and we can't shut off our anxiety. And it is true that this worry stems from noble intentions. We want to provide for our families. We want to give our children every opportunity to enrich their lives. We want to serve our neighbors. We want to serve God. Where would the church be without Marthas? Those faithful folk who perform the tasks of hospitality and service, so vital for making the church welcoming and well-functioning. And yet, if all of our activities leave us no time to be still in God's presence, to hear God's word, we're likely to end up more anxious and more trouble. We are likely to end up having this kind of service that's completely devoid of joy and love, and that eventually will become resentful. Listening and doing, receiving God's word and serving, these are both vital to the Christian life, just as inhaling and exhaling are important to our lives. We need both. And yet, how often do we forget to breathe deeply? So I think one of my favorite places in Shawnee, and probably my favorite place in Shawnee, is my front porch. On a summer morning, I'm a terrible person and I water my grass. And I'm sitting out there at 6 a.m., 5:45 a.m. It's cool at that time. I can feel the wind. I can hear the water. It's quiet. I try to pray maybe with my prayer book or maybe just in silence. And it's just 10 minutes. And I forgot to mention, with a cup of coffee. It's just 10 minutes. But if I don't get that time in the morning, the day isn't right. Silence. Quiet. No cell phone, no dinging bell master in my hip. Just silence. Trying to serve without being nourished by God is like expecting good fruit to grow from a tree that we've pulled out of the ground. We need to listen. We need to hear. But this text is not just about busyness, distraction, and worry. Notice, if Martha was really serving, if she was really hospitality, she wouldn't have broken all of the rules of hospitality in the text. She tries to embarrass her sister in front of her guest. She asks her guest to intervene in a family dispute, and she even goes so far as to accuse her guest of not caring about her. This is a great host. So this text is about more than busyness and distraction, as we've often heard it. There is no greater hospitality than actually listening to someone, than actually listening and being in their presence. How much more so when the guest is God? We know that Jesus breaks the social norms. Last week we heard how he compelled the teacher of the law to say that the Samaritan was the best, was the neighbor to the one who was injured. And this week, I don't think it's accidental that Luke places this story after that one. We hear another social convention being broken. Jesus, who appears first to the women after his resurrection. Jesus here is doing what rabbis always did when they went to visit a home. They sat in the living area, and all of the men sat at their feet and talked to the rabbi and discussed with the rabbi while the women served in the kitchen preparing the meal. And yet here is Mary sitting at the feet of Jesus, taking take. And Martha's furious. Lord, don't you care that I'm doing all the work? Lord, don't you care that she's breaking the rules? Martha, what you're doing is good. Mary has chosen the better path. And for Jesus, there's no reason why that path should not have been open to her. So we need Mary's, and we need Martha's. And we need to know that neither of these roles are just for men or just for women, but they're for all of us. We all need to serve, and we all need to sit at the feet of Jesus and listen.